Good morning, traders. Welcome to today's market review. This is Fred Razek at CMTrading. Today is January 9th, 2019, and today is Wednesday morning. So looking at the major economic events of the day, starting out at 5 o'clock South African time out of Canada, we have an interest rate statement coming out of the Central Bank of Canada. That's an important event. And then at 5:30 South African time, Governor Carney will be speaking out of the Bank of England. That should sure to affect the GBP. We'll take a look at that. And lastly, FOMC meeting minutes following up our FOMC decision at 9 p.m. South African time. So a lot of news coming out later today. But taking a roundup of the markets, if we look at the Forex symbols, the euro is pretty much unchanged. Okay, nothing really going on there. It seems like it's just waiting for a outside impetus, an outside event in order to take it either lower or higher. Canadian dollar breaks minor support. We'll take a look at that in just a moment. And then looking at the indices, Dow Jones extends its rally, but pairs some of that gains this morning. And looking at commodity, oil hits $50 on resistance and gold on minor support. So we'll take a look at that as well. And lastly, cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin hits 4,000 but creeps lower and really is unchanged from yesterday. And we'll take a look at that in just a moment. But let's see what we can expect from today's trading.
This conference will now be recorded.
So we're taking a look here at the Euro USD, and as you can see, we're at that top of the range, closer to the top of the range at 1426-ish level, really flirting with this upper limit, and it looks like it wants to go higher, okay? But it needs an impetus, it needs some sort of gas in order to go higher. That's the way it looks right now. So ultimately, there's nothing to really jump into at this stage. If we do get this above this 1478-ish level, 1490-ish level, then I'd actually look to actually buy it. But until that actually happens, I think that we may still see it correct on the downside. So really, nothing to really jump into. Now, the GBP USD also at the top of its range, but also not really selling off on the downside. Maybe Governor Carney will give us a little bit more of an impetus to go higher later today. Now, looking at the USD ZAR, this is really important. We're below the 14 level at 1389. That means we could go further to 1360, and there's a little bit of resisting a 14 flat. So just be aware of that. Now, lastly, going into Canadian dollar, you can see that we had this nosedive from 136 down to 59. Remember, Canadian dollar is quite linked to the oil, to the price of oil, that is. If the price of oil goes down, the value of the Canadian dollar also goes down. So, since the price of oil has somewhat bounced from its low of $42 a barrel to $50, we'll see a little bit of a retracement here, a little bit of a correction here versus the dollars. So with that said, if the Canadian government or the Canadian bank actually implements some sort of more aggressive measures in order to jumpstart the Canadian dollar, we could see maybe further reduction here of the Canadian dollar further down. So just be aware of that. Now, looking at that oil, you can see that we're right there at $50 a barrel, okay, at resistance, since we hit that before earlier. So this might be a turning point for the price of oil, okay? There's significant amount of resistance here at $50, so just be aware that we may see a sell-off later today. Now, the Dow Jones looks like it's selling off already. We had a high of yesterday, 23,800-ish, 70-ish level, let's just say, okay? And now we're just retracing below that. Let's look at a 1-hour chart. And we're just selling a little bit below that right now to 23,800-ish level. But, coming off of our lows from, post-Christmas Day, we've seen a massive rally in it. Now, this may be a turning point for it, okay? Because when we look at the NASDAQ, it's actually much higher. It's on that previous resistance, previous support area-ish level. Whereas if we look at the Dow, we're not there yet, okay? I would have expected the Dow to be somewhere around this area. Okay, because if we look at the NASDAQ, you could see that we are at that area. Okay, looking at the NASDAQ, let's look at it. Okay, in a similar area, we're right there. Okay, we played catch up. Okay, so the NASDAQ is a little bit stronger than the Dow Jones here as it makes its correction on the upside. So with that said, does that mean the Dow Jones will go down first? Maybe. Okay, we may still have this correctional move to test our lows of the year of 21,500-ish levels. So be aware of it. Lots of stuff still going on in the news. A lot of government shutdown in the United States because of this wall that President Trump wants to build, and the Democrats are not conceding to him. So there's a little bit of infighting in the politics of the United States. Now, going globally, we still know that United States and China are having some tariff wars, that hasn't been resolved. So there's a lot of uncertainty in the markets, and we know that China has actually, slowed down some of its production, so it's slowing down. So, a lot of consensus around the markets are still negative. So although that we've, rallied about, 2,500 points, still to say we may still have a correctional move on the downside. Now, if we look at Apple, you see that it wants to take it up higher, but it's resisting it at 150. Okay, this might actually be a decent place to actually short this at 150 as it hits this resistance level, previous support. Now, looking at Amazon, also same story. Okay, haven't broke above the 1781-ish level, so I'm not sure that we will, and that's something to consider as we enter next week and enter, the heart of the first quarter. This is Fred Razak. Want to wish everybody a great trading day. Thank you.